After spouse, you then have children. And we don't discriminate anymore. So we no longer discriminate for children born in wedlock and outside of wedlock. But again, the children have to show they are the children of the father that has died. So what they now have to produce is a birth certificate. And we're praying and hoping that the father's name is on it. If it's not, we have to get a declaration of paternity. But once they've overcome that hurdle, then the children share outright. If there's no spouse and there's no children, then we go to the next category, which is parents. And parents take absolutely. If I have none of the 1 to 3, the next category is grandparents. After grandparents is brothers and sisters. After brothers and sisters is uncles and aunts. After uncles and aunts is what we call the crown, which is really the government of Jamaica. You didn't hear me say niece. You didn't hear me say nephew. You didn't hear me say cousin. You didn't hear me say grandchildren. They don't get at all if you've died without a will. That's just how terrible it is, because if you have your will and you wanted to leave everything to your niece, that's the only way you can do it. But the common law spouse has to go and incur the cost of getting a declaration, and they have to satisfy the judge that they are, because when Peter Tosh died, 3 women came forward, all for the same 5-year period. So the court had to make a determination, because remember the act said only one such union qualifies. So they had to determine which out of the 3 satisfy the requirement under the statute. Again, just on the affidavit evidence that was before them, who you really spent more time with as husband and wife for the 5-year period. Yeah. Yeah.
Just to clarify, what if in the case of if you were going through a divorce
Right.
at the time when you died and you had been living with somebody for 5 years as a spouse and have a family with that person, but at the time of your death, the divorce is not final.
Right. Yeah. Right, because again, under the, yep. Oh, yeah, oh, sure, go ahead.
Okay, I was just asking in the case of if the persons are getting a divorce, and when the person dies, the divorce is not final, but they had been living with somebody and started a family, and they're assuming that they're having a common law relationship.
Right.
So 5 years, have family, have children, but the divorce not final at the time of death. But,
right. Well, again, under the same Interstates Act as I'm alluding to, you have to be a single man or a single woman living with, the vice versa, a single man with a single woman. So by single, it meant you have to be divorced. So even though they had started proceedings, as you've alluded to, you have to have had the absolute, the decree absolute. If that has not been issued, you're still what? Married to the estranged spouse that you have, even though you have moved on and you have a common law relationship going on. That person is going to be treated as the surviving spouse, not the one you were living with for the 5 years just before you died. So you have to be widowed or you have to be a divorcee, meaning the absolute had to have come through for you to qualify as a single man living with a single woman. And the same thing for the woman.
Perhaps you could clarify for me. I wondered about that. You remember that famous story of Bob Marley and the several children outside of wedlock. How does that work in the event that you are married and you have children within the marriage, but there are several children outside of the marriage?
But remember, I had mentioned that under the Interstates Act, we don't discriminate anymore.
Okay.
So once you have children, whether legitimate or illegitimate, under our Status of Children Act, we are treating all children equally.
And even if you have a will that states specifically?
Well, if you've died with a will,
yes,
we're going to give your gifts to who you've named in the will.
Okay.
They're going to get that outright. So the outside children, if you didn't provide for them in the will, there's nothing that they can get there. However, all is not lost, because we realize that this is what is happening. And we passed legislation, which is the Inheritance Provision for Family and Dependents Act, which says if you qualified under that act, which now would be those children, but they had to have been maintained by their parents. And if they were being maintained by daddy or mommy, then they can bring a claim that the maintenance will continue, even though mommy and daddy have died. Okay. So they don't benefit under the will, but they can bring a claim to become a dependent and to get maintenance under that legislation.
And of course, it's a burden of proof
right.
that he's actually the father.
Right.
Gentleman over there, you want to ask a question?
Oh.
Hi. If a will has been made in Canada or the United States, and your estate that is now in Jamaica is not included on that will, is it applicable?
All right, well, let's just separate the two. If you had it in Canada, which is a Commonwealth country, once you had the will in our jurisdiction, are you giving me those facts? We have a will in our jurisdiction. If the person has a will in Jamaica, and that will is going to be dealing with the assets in Jamaica, we then realize that the person has assets in Canada, just using the example you're giving us. We can take that will and do what we call resealing. So we take the grant that we got out of our local courts, send it over to Canada now, and have it resealed in Canada, for instance, and all Canada is going to be doing is what? Focusing on just the assets now in Canada, and they're going to use this reseal grant in Canada to deal with the assets there.
If it's the other way around.
Versus, you can get the grant in Canada. When you've gotten the grant in Canada or any Commonwealth countries, I could pick New Zealand, Africa, and so on, or in England, we then reseal it in the Jamaican jurisdiction, and we're only dealing with whatever assets you have in Jamaica now, so that we can transfer your assets in Jamaica. However, now, when we want to transfer your assets in Jamaica, where are we at? 15 to 17% of the value of the assets in Jamaica, not what is going to be situated in Canada. America, their laws are totally different. So you have to get another grant all over to deal with your assets in America. But for the Commonwealth countries, we shorten the process because we're Commonwealth jurisdictions, and we're taking it to the stage where we just tell you to get a grant from the one that was already issued from a court in a Commonwealth country.
Could the will supersede the case where the divorce is not final? If you want to exclude the spouse, if that's your wish?
No, well, the will is going to speak. So once the will is valid, signed by you in the presence of two persons, we must honor whatever the will has said. And we have to do in law what we call probating the will and give the assets to what the will had said. So it can't supersede that. Okay? The will is what is going to speak and give the asset that way. Okay?
I just want to follow up on that question. So are you saying that it's possible for, and I put it the way I'd like to put it, a wife to totally exclude her husband from her will and leave her assets to some other person?
You see how he's pretty?
Listen well, wives.
All right, listen. The will just has to be signed by you, as the Wills Act is saying, in the presence of two persons, and it's valid. And you have in law what we call testamentary freedom. And having said that, that meant you have the freedom to disown particular categories of beneficiaries. And if you wanted to give it to the cats of Jamaica or to whatever, you can. But you have that freedom. But it doesn't sit right with us, eh? That you can disinherit your loved ones or your children or your parents. Remember, those were the three top categories we had. So because of that, that was why the Inheritance Act came in. Because they tell you you have the freedom to have your will, and I want you to have your will. But you really can't disown those persons, because if you are maintaining them, and that's what's critical, and they were dependent on you while you were alive, meaning you were paying the mortgage for the spouse, or you're paying the rent, or you're paying the grocery bill, or you're paying for your children's education, they're dependent on you. So though you left nothing for them in the will, under the Inheritance Provision for Family and Dependents Act now, they're coming after you. And they're going to have to verify, because they have to bring the claim. So again, it's their responsibility to come and show, Mommy and Daddy was paying my school fees, here's the bill. Mommy and Daddy was paying for the mortgage or the rent, whatever. And then a court will give an order to maintain that, lump sum, periodic, whatever. So you still have the estate liable to do what? Pay that. You have to bring that application before we've distributed the estate, which is what you're hoping. So that before we have done that, you bring the claim that you will then benefit from a court order to make provision for you. But you must be maintaining those persons. They can't use Inheritance Act now to say, well, oh, let me now run to university and let Daddy and Mommy pay for the fees. They had to have been in university or higher education or vocational training, and you want the court to give an order that the estate take out some of the money to pay for that.
Okay.
And behind you have to spin that. Yes, sorry, ladies.
Just a hold. We're bringing the mic for you. We're bringing the mic.
I have many questions. I'm also in real estate, but most importantly, coming out of this, I wanted to find out if when you make a will and you have the two witnesses, if at the time you die, those witnesses are also not around, how do you treat that? That's one. And the second question is, in the case of the trustee, who protects the interest of the minor? If it is that the trustee spends the minor's
benefits. All right, so let me deal with the first one. The, come again. The two witnesses, right. All right, the will has to be signed by the testator. Forgive me for spinning, right, but how it's set up. It has to be just witnessed by two persons. Now, we have had a lot of problems where we either can't read the handwriting, so we don't know who the witnesses are, or even if we have managed to read the handwriting, we can't find them, or more importantly, what you're saying, they may have died as well. So they're not there to speak to the veracity of the will. So we did make some changes to what we call our Civil Procedure Code, where we have said once the will has a clause on it which says, signed by the testator, and I'm just breaking it down, in the presence of two persons who are present at the same time, they no longer need to have the witnesses come and give such evidence. So we don't need to be doing what? Searching for the witnesses anymore, or hoping and praying that the witnesses are alive when the person's estate is being done. But even if we needed it, because if the person's signature is shaking, which is usually the common one, because with age your signature doesn't look the same, the registrar can still ask the attorney to verify that the will was properly executed under the Wills Act. So we have affidavit evidence where I will get evidence from somebody who knows the signature of the two witnesses. So suppose it's done in a law firm. A secretary may be familiar with the signature of the testator, number one. So they do what we call an affidavit of, handwriting of the testator. Then we have to find two persons who know what? The witness's signature, and they do an affidavit saying they are familiar with the signature on the will. They're saying that is their signature, and the fact that we're seeing it, the court will then allow us to go ahead and probate the will. But they've said that once it just says signed by the testator in the presence of two witnesses, we don't have to call on anybody to verify anymore. So they literally waive that requirement.
And may I ask, ma'am, that will cannot be valid unless two people sign it?
It has to be two.
Compulsory?
Has to be two. It's not valid if you have one. And you know what some persons do? They give me one, and the one person is a justice of the peace. So they think because it's a justice of the peace, they have satisfied it. Our Wills Act says it has to be two persons. One doesn't qualify. Yeah, well, if not, the will is not valid. And if the will is not valid, you've died intestate, and we're back to that unfortunate scenario. Now, with the trustees, you want to appoint the trustees, and you can do it under your will, as I mentioned to you earlier. The assets, as you heard me tell you, are going to be transferred to the trustees. So you realize we're putting a lot of faith in the trustees, because their name is going on the title, their name is going on the bank account, you're paying them over from the insurance proceeds. So we can't stop them from investing in OLINT or Cash Plus, right, Cliff? You can't stop them from doing it. But you can sue them in their capacity as trustees, because it is not their money. They're holding it as trustees on trust. So the beneficiary who should have gotten it, or you squandered it and made bad decisions, we can sue them. And a court can say that what? They're liable to pay back, what should have been a benefit towards the beneficiaries. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, one more question back there. Over there, that one.
Oh, they're not easing up.
Did you say that the two persons that have to bear witness, it has to be done at the same time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Same time. Because that's what they're saying too. They're saying they were together. Like, no, if you're signing your will, Lana and myself have to be here. We watch you sign your will. So we see you put your signature on your will. And then we take the document and put our signature on. Lana then puts her signature on. And what we're saying is, we saw you put it on in the presence of the two of us.
Does it have to be in the same pen? Someone just asked the question.
Yes. Yes.
Same pen.
Because when you start to look at it, remember that time store will, nobody's guiding you, you're just going ahead. It has to be in the same ink, because we're trying to minimize any doubt that something is not happening all at the same time. So if the ink is running out and the inks are different, or the handwriting is looking different, the will may still be valid, because guess what? The testator signed in the presence of two persons. But we have to do an affidavit for the court where we say just that. The ink ran out, this one took up this ink, this one did that, this one wrote the first clause, somebody else wrote the second clause. So we're satisfying that the document is complete when what? the testator is signing it so that it really reflects his wishes as his last will and testament.
We have a problem. What if the executor dies?
All right. All right. All right, so under your will now, just like I kept telling you, it needs to be signed by the testator in the presence of 2 persons. We want you to appoint executors. You can appoint a minimum of 1, a maximum of 4. I want 2 because the odds are better when you had 2. So even if 1 died before you, remember I told you that if they came to me, the attorney, they think they're going to die. When they've done the will and they know one of their executors has died, they're still not changing the will. So odds are, by the time the estate is being done, I still have an executor being appointed who has what? Predeceased, the testator. But if they have died, I can use the other executor, and I just refer to the fact that the other one has died and exhibit the death certificate. If the 2 of them have died, I still have a what? A valid will, because you're all still with me. I have a valid will. But the 2 executors having died, I have no living executor. So you know what happens to that person's estate? I'm not applying for probate now. I'm applying for a grant of administration with the will annexed, which means I honor what the will says, but I need an individual to be appointed. And I have to go through the Administrator General's office, and I'm back to that Intestates Act as to who can now apply for the grant. It takes 2 to 4 years now.
Well, I was just thinking about what if there's not sufficient fund to take care of all those taxes and the lawyers' fees and the
that 15 to
executive
17%,
fees.
that's right. And in the majority of the estates, because nobody planned for it, nobody had the insurance policy to help us, what happens is we still owe the tax.
No, what happened is that the bank account is in the the person's name.
So it has
and
gone
then
to them?
The person died, they just went to...
Yes, because it's their money. But we still have the other assets. So whatever asset we have in the estate, what we have to do now is sell your assets to come up with the 15 to 17% to pay it to the government.
And to distribute according to the will.
That's right. That's right. So what is happening is, I have seen many a will where you say to me, the family home is never to be sold. The family home is to be left to all my loved ones. But nobody planned for it. So nobody prepared for the 15 to 17%.
And the maintenance.
And that's right. So I now have to turn around and sell the real estate. And I'm not selling it when the market is right. I have to sell it when? No. So I'm not going to get the best price for it and use that money to pay off the taxes that is owed to the attorneys, the government, and so on.
But when you're dead,
You're in heaven. And
You're happy, you don't need to worry about it.
when you're dead, you're dead.
That's right.
Nobody
And
can
you are the
administer
happy
from the
one.
grave.
And I'm here to tell you, all your loved ones are going to fight over the asset before I even get your estate to be administered, you know.
Yes.
They're moving with your household contents.
And number 1. Number 2. No, don't a will is private, separate and apart?
Yes, it is. A will is
Thank you.
private, but as long as you keep it private. When you have prepared your will, I don't want your loved ones to know what you've put in the will. Because they may not like what you put in the will, and they will go and destroy it, find it, tear it up, and hide it. So that you need to make sure that you keep it private. And by that I mean, the safer you keep the will, the better for the estate. Meaning, not at home in your top drawer, not underneath the mattress. I want it in a safe to deposit box, or a pan that you have at home that is locked, and you limit who has access to it. Because you really want to keep it private. Because what happens is, even though you've done your will now, and you've gone and told your loved one, oh, I was leaving this real estate to you, you can change it tomorrow. Yes. That's right. So you need to keep it private because it is ambulatory, so it only speaks from the day that you do die. So you need to keep it private. I don't even want the copies. I only want the attorney to keep a copy. And you to keep it safe in your safe to deposit box, because if we can't find it, that meant you either intended to revoke it, and not that you had it at home and somebody destroyed it so that we couldn't find it. The attorney will have a copy of the executed will. We can probate a copy of your executed will, even if we can't find the original. Okay?
We're having a wonderful conversation. This is so interesting, isn't it? But I think we need to move on to some other aspects of the program tonight. So I just want to thank you, Denise. That was
My
so
pleasure.
illuminating.
My pleasure.
We know what we need to do. Thank you so much. And Denise is going to be here with us a little bit longer. So if you still have questions, feel free to capture her at some point this evening and ask your question. So we're moving along to the next aspect of our program tonight. I spoke earlier about how the whole of Scotia Insurance staff became movie stars. So we're going to... Yes. So we're going to show you that special strip of us being, living out our dream of being movie stars. But before I go into that, I'd just like to say, Mr. Orville Johnson, Executive Director of IAJ, is here with us. So we just want to welcome him this evening. Thank you. Okay. So, can we move into the movie now? Look at your screens, folks.
How are you?
Morning, how are you?
I'm blessed. I'm here to see Lana Forbes.
All right, 1 moment.
In 1999, when I worked in central government at Administrator General's Department, from central government I had a motor vehicle loan. So they paid off the loan, and then each month, they always take a deduction out. So it was a $2,000 deduction that I had. And I came to the bank and I was downstairs doing business, and Peter Mohan, he was an officer at the time in Scotia Mint, and he encouraged me, he said, Clunis, don't spend that money. He said, put it in a Scotia Mint. And I said, I don't want no Scotia Mint, man. I'm not saving no money in Scotia Bank. Scotia Bank have enough money. And he said, no. And he encouraged me, and I did. And today, I'm so grateful. Hey, Nana. Morning. Hey, Nana. How are you doing, Nana? How are you doing? I'm blessed. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
I just came to say thanks to you for Scotia Insurance helping our church sister, the one that was murdered recently.
Oh, yeah.
Sister Max, to assist us that they could have gotten through with the assistance. I'm really grateful to you.
And they had the funeral and everything.
Yeah, we had a wonderful funeral, wonderful service, a wonderful funeral. Well, it so happened that a sister from my church, Sister Marks, she's known as Eggy because she walked and sell boiled eggs. But they broke into her house, and this was like 4 or 5 times they broke into her house over a period where she lived. And she had a Scotia Mint investment, and they destroyed it. The policy was torn up, and her will, everything was destroyed. And she had she had gone to the Scotia Mint to ask for the replacement, and she was told that she needed $3,000, which I know she was not able to afford to pay back because she was just someone who was just a humble woman just selling her boiled eggs. I knew Lana, and I said, okay, there's someone I know in Scotia Mint, I'm going to ask her. And God is so good that, when I spoke to Lana, and Lana said, okay, bring it across. She got her form filled out, whatever. There's a procedure you have to follow. And Lana said she'll deal with it, and I came across to Lana, and she dealt with it. That is at your branch here at Duke Street. And would you believe it that Sister Max was murdered the following week? Lana put everything in place for her, got her policy back in place, that she's got like a replacement policy and everything, and she was murdered the following week. Thanks to you on behalf of my son Arthur.
Oh, yeah.
Because now he had an accident, wrote
Oh, yes,
off his
I
car,
remember.
and we're together. He was getting a new car, and his Scotia Mint was just in time. Over the years, I have been increasing it, and I was stunned. At the end of each year in November, you get your statement, and I tell you, I couldn't believe that a little $2,000 and a little more added on could benefit you at the end of the year so much money. My son had a motor vehicle accident recently on the airport road, and he needed some money to get back on a vehicle. And I was able to come to Scotia Mint, thank God for Lana Forbes, and he was able to get the money and you could buy back a car. And I didn't have to go borrow anything from anybody. So I am really pleased, and I have clients, even on our job, we encourage them to do investments with Scotia Mint, and they're also very pleased.
June 16th, 2013, a very special day in the life and history of Scotia Jamaica Life Insurance Company Limited. We celebrate on that day the 15th anniversary of what is a very special life insurance company. Over these 15 years, we have had a wonderful experience. We have in excess of 150,000 customers covering over 8 different product lines, and the company has become, as we would like to think it, a household name for our customers.
I actually came in September 1997, and I was a part of the pre-setup team, because actually Scotia Life started in June of '98 and I came to September, so I was part of the, for want of a better term, what we call like a model office team, where we're testing system and making sure that everything is in place. At that time it was a very small group. We had like about 5 persons on board. We were on the 12th floor, small office, and to see that we have now grown to over 100, it's quite a change. Being a part of it is a very good experience, I think.
We had one product, Scotia Mint, and since then, since 2009, we're actually now at 7 products. We have launched so many products in the last few years, just since 2009. So the company really has grown. We've changed a lot about how we do business, and it's really been an exciting time for me.
Sometimes you take on a work that when you're young, you're not necessarily sure where your headspace is at. But life insurance has been in my blood for some time now, because even at my previous workplace, I was there for 10 years. So in addition, I'm working 20 odd years now in life insurance. If there was a perfect world and a perfect workplace, then Scotia Insurance would be it. You will have your challenges, you will have your ups and downs and so, but for some reason we always seem to surpass it, and we still exceed others' expectations. We are always mentioned as the vibes place to be. So as soon as there's a vacant position.
Well, that was a new experience for us, and we thought we had so much fun doing that. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed doing it. We have one more formal activity that we must do before we get down to the other part of the evening, the fun part of the evening, where we enjoy the music and have some more conversation. You see that lovely cake over there? We would like to actually cut it so we can share it with you guys, and we can enjoy some of that wonderful cake. But before I just want to recognize some people who actually turned up a little later. Andre Harvey, he's the assistant manager for this branch, Constant Spring branch. And I have to say, we thank him so much, because without his staff, we would not be here today. They allowed us to use this lovely location, and so we're very happy. Thank you so much, Andrew. We appreciate it. And then we have another special person with us, Mrs. Jacqueline Sharp. Now, she was was our general manager for how many years, Jackie? 5. About 5 years, right. So she's one of our special people. Yes. So I'm going to ask our management team to possibly come up and do that cake cutting. Can we invite some special customers to join us as well? We at Scotia, and how much it has done for her. So we're very happy to have her here with us this evening. You? I'm here. Oh, and Miss Julie. Oh, we have another wonderful customer. Oh, yes. Miss Dawkins. Yes, please. And Mr. Okay, great. You want to move forward a little bit?
Who's going to come?
Jump in. Where the candle?
Go.
We should have had you count 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like.
After this, we're going to enjoy some good music from the team over here, and we're going to have a chance to get to know each other a little bit better. And Denise, Mrs. Henry James is still here with us, so if you have any other questions that you'd like to ask about estate planning, she's available. Feel free. And of course, I'd love for you to spend some time getting to know the team that we have here. Caterer, have you enjoyed the food? I thought it was quite lovely. So it's Gary Ferguson from G's Barbecue in Marketplace.